Curiosity stirred before fear, a small, stubborn flame that kept Clara May Holloway moving through the night, when sense told her to lie down and let the snow have its way. The moon hid behind clouds like a witness unwilling to testify, and the world narrowed to breath boots and the soft hiss of falling white. She had learned long ago that curiosity was safer than hope. Hope asked too much, while curiosity only asked what might happen next. She stopped when the cabin appeared, not suddenly, but as if it had been waiting. A square of dark was stitched into the mountainside. Light leaked through a single window, thin as mercy. Clara studied it, counting heartbeats, feeling the ache in her fingers, remembering other doors. In town they had closed before she reached the steps, or opened just wide enough to measure her worth and find it lacking. 25 years had taught her how to read faces quickly, to see when kindness was a rumor and judgment a certainty. She knocked anyway. The sound felt loud, a trespass against all that quiet. Inside, Elias Crow lifted his head from the table where supper cooled untouched. He was a man accustomed to listening for trouble, yet this knock carried no threat, only a plea that seemed embarrassed to exist. Elias owned land enough to make his name known, but he preferred the mountains to people. For people asked questions he did not know how to answer. He rose slowly, aware of his own hesitation, the way solitude can become a habit one mistakes for peace. When he opened the door, cold rushed in like a living thing. Clara stood there, smaller than the storm, her hair stiff with frost, her eyes alert despite exhaustion. She did not step forward. She waited, as if the decision were his alone and always would be. Elias saw the restraint and understood his pride, bruised but intact. He stepped aside without ceremony. "Come in," he said, not as an invitation but a fact, the way one names the weather. The warmth startled her. She swayed, then steadied, refused his arm. He noticed a refusal and respected it. Elias set water to boil, laid a blanket near the fire, and asked her name only after she had eaten a little. Clara answered quietly. Each word weighed, as though speech itself cost something. She did not explain how she came to be there. He did not ask. Between them settled an agreement shaped by necessity and restraint. Outside, snow thickened, pressing the night closer. Inside, the cabin held the plain order of a man who lived alone. Tools cleaned and hung, a rifle resting but not eager, boots lined with care. Elias watched Clara take it in, the way her shoulders eased as she learned the room would not accuse her. He felt an unfamiliar pull, not desire, but recognition, the sense that something unspoken had entered and changed the balance of his quiet life. Clara slept by the fire, dreams shallow and restless. Elias kept his chair, listening to the storm and to the fragile proof of another breath in the room. He remembered his own first winter alone, the way silence had pressed until he learned to answer with work. He wondered what answers this woman carried, and whether the mountains would be kinder to her than the town had been. By morning, the snow lay deep and clean, disguising old tracks. Clara woke with resolve hardening where fear had been. She would thank him and go. Staying too long invited stories, and stories had a way of turning people into warnings. Elias poured coffee and spoke of the past being closed, of a day's delay as a simple matter. His tone made room, without demanding acceptance. They shared the meal in a quiet that felt chosen. When Clara stood, she met his eyes fully for the first time. Curiosity returned, gentler now, asking not what she might lose, but what might be built if she stayed long enough to see. Elias felt it too, the beginning of a question that neither of them named, and the cabin held that question carefully, as if aware it would need time to be answered. The road to town lay buried, yet its presence pressed on them both. Clara had felt eyes on her back even in places she could not see, and Elias knew how quickly news traveled when it wished harm. He mentioned the sheriff once, only to say the man preferred rules to mercy, and Clara nodded, understanding the cost of being noticed. They spoke of work that could be done when the storm broke, of fences and accounts, of tasks that made a person visible in honest ways. As daylight settled, Clara offered to help, lifting a broom, stacking wood, proving usefulness without pleading for it. Elias accepted without praise, which felt like a gift. Each small motion stitched trust where none had been promised. When the wind fell quiet, they stood at the door together, Looking out, her world paused, both aware that when it moved again, it would test what had begun here. Neither spoke of tomorrow, yet both felt its weight, a patient pressure that asked for courage, not declarations, and promised that the next knock would not sound quite so lonely after all nights. Morning loosened the mountains, and with it came consequences neither snow nor silence could hide. Clara and Elias walked toward town once the path softened, their steps measured, not touching yet aligned. She felt a familiar tightening in her chest as roofs appeared, memory whispering of looks that cut deeper than cold. Elias sensed it too, though he spoke only of practical matters, of flour and nails, of business that could not wait forever. They were seen before they were heard. Eyes followed them, curious and sharp, counting the distance between a man known for his reserve and a woman no one claimed. Clara straightened, choosing posture over apology. Elias did not slow. At the mercantile, a pause fell, conversation thinning into watchfulness. Clara offered to wait outside. Elias shook his head, a small refusal that felt louder than speech. Rumor moved faster than truth. By noon it had gathered shape, not as accusation but as question, which can wound just as well. Clara heard her name spoken with uncertainty, then with assumption. She remembered the night she had learned to pack quickly, the way belonging can be revoked without warning. She told Elias she would leave after the storm fully broke. Said it as a decision already made. He listened, hand still, then asked what she wanted, not what she feared. The question unsettled her more than any judgment. Work answered first. Elias set her to accounts and mending, tasks that demanded care and rewarded honesty. Clara brought order with a steadiness born of necessity, finding a rhythm that quieted old shame. Days gathered. The town watched, then adjusted. A greeting here, a nod there, the slow recalibration of opinion. Elias offered no defense and made no display. He stood where he always had, letting consistency do its quiet work. The test came when it always does, dress of concern. A neighbor remarked on propriety, on appearances that mattered to livelihoods. Elias replied without heat, stating facts, refusing the story others wanted him to tell. Clara felt the ground shift. She spoke then, clear and measured, claiming her work and her intention to earn her place. The words did not ask permission. They named it. Winter loosened its grip. Fences rose straight. Ledgers balanced. Laughter found its way into the cabin. Tentative at first, then sure. Evenings held shared meals and longer silences, the kind that invite thought rather than ward it off. When Elias reached for Clara's hand, it was to steady her on ice, and he let go as soon as balance returned. She noticed, and something eased. Spring came with a melt that revealed more than earth. Clara chose to stay, not as shelter but as partner in labor. Elias revised plans long held alone, making room without losing himself. Their closeness grew in increments, trust proven daily. The town learned the shape of them and, finding no scandal to feed on, turned to other hungers. One night, as light lingered, Elias spoke of the knock that had altered his listening. Clara answered with the truth she carried, not all of it, but enough. They did not promise forever. They promised the next morning, and then kept that promise again and again. They learned the language of small days, where meaning hid in repetition rather than revelation. Mornings began with shared purpose. Evenings ended with quiet review, and between them lay work that asked for patience more than strength. Clara discovered pride that did not depend on being praised, a steadiness rooted in showing up when expected and staying when leaving would be easier. Elias discovered a gentler courage, the kind that allows space without retreating, that listens without preparing an answer. Together they adjusted habits, not to impress, but to fit, like boards playing until the scene disappears. The town's attention faded as reliably as winter, leaving behind a cautious respect earned through consistency. Clara stopped flinching at footsteps behind her. Elias stopped guarding the silence quite so fiercely. They spoke of plans in practical terms, never tempting fate with grand vows, yet each plan carried the shape of two people moving in the same direction. When disagreements came, they were met plainly, solved with humor or time, not with withdrawal. On a clear afternoon, they stood where the path met the road, aware of how easily lives can diverge. Clara chose the cabin again, choosing it as freely as she once chose to knock. Elias understood that choice as commitment without possession. The mountains seemed to approve, offering nothing but space and weather, which was enough. It was not perfection they sought, only a way of living that allowed mistakes to rest aside effort, and let kindness remain ordinary, repeatable, and strong enough to carry them forward without spectacle, fear, or regret into seasons still unwritten, quietly awaited, patiently, together, whole. The happiness that settled was not loud. It showed itself in shared glances across a room, in decisions made together, in the simple dignity of being seen without being claimed. When Clara laughed, it sounded like relief. When Elias smiled, it stayed. If there is a lesson here, it is small and durable. Curiosity can open doors that fear would seal. Mercy, practiced quietly, builds a future sturdy enough to stand weather. Their story continues, not because it must be told, but because it is lived, one ordinary, extraordinary day at a time.